What have you got for us today, Ligeia?
Persian Netflix. And I'll explain.
Would I just need a VPN to do Persian Netflix? I don't know if I can show that
No,
on here, Ligeia. What are you talking about?
no. It's a big book. It's called 1001 Nights, or you may know this under the name Arabian Nights Entertainment.
Yep,
This is
I know that
yeah.
name. Okay,
What is
so we're talking about Arabian Nights, that 1001 Nights. What have we got?
right? So you have an idea what it is, and shall I do a short recap?
Yeah, just go ahead and give everybody a recap, myself included, just in case.
Right. So you know a couple of stories from the Arabian Nights cycle, and that would be Aladdin, that would be Ali Baba and the 40
Sinbad, I think,
Thieves,
as well, right?
Sinbad, right.
Hmm.
And all of these stories are collected in one big book. And this book has an overarching story of a king who lived in Persia. And he was betrayed by his wife. She cheated on him. So his name is Shahryar, not Sharia, but Shahryar.
Okay.
After he had been cheated on by his wife, he started marrying young women. He spent one night with them, and afterwards he executed them. Because he never wanted to be betrayed by a woman ever again.
So,
And
so he
finally,
married a different woman every night, did what he
right,
needed to do, and killed him the next day so he could get a new one.
exactly.
What a dick.
Yes, he kind of is. So when he had run out of eligible women, he tried to get to his counselor's daughters. His counselor had two daughters. In the book, the counselor is named a vizier. So if you don't know what that is, it's a royal counselor.
Mm.
Um, and one of the daughters volunteered. Her name is Sherazade, and she thought she could handle this, but her family was very afraid for her. So she married the king. She spent the first night with him. They did what they had to do. And after that, she told him a story. And she didn't finish the story before the sun went up. So this is something that she's going to do for 1001 nights. She always ends on a cliffhanger. So he has a reason to keep her alive for one more night so she can finish the story, but she never finishes.
So essentially, she tells all the stories that we might at least in the West know from Arabian Nights. Basically,
Yeah.
she's telling all these stories to him every single night, but not finishing them. Okay, okay.
And she needs to be an excellent storyteller because it's life or death for her.
It's pretty big stakes.
She's finished a story, she will start a new one, and then she will also end on a cliffhanger. And this collection of tales was extremely popular on the Silk Road. So it's centered in Persia. That's why I called it Persian Netflix. And Netflix because it has different topics like crime, horror, history, fantasy, romance, humor, poetry, even some science fiction. So in some of these stories, they actually have robots. Um,
Robots. Oh my god. Okay.
And these stories are extremely old, so nobody knows how they got these robots. The oldest version that we have of the text is from the 15th century, but compared to when they were invented, when they were written, that's rather young. So we're talking about stories that are a few thousand years old, but they have a flying robot horse that is pink and has green wings. That is one of the robots.
Awesome.
And a lot of it is rather ridiculous. She tells her husband stories that are pretty unbelievable. But he believes everything and he loves it. He eats that stuff up. And the story ends with him deciding not to kill her. So after 1001 nights, he assures her that he is not going to get her executed. And well, they can finally spend a night together without her having to tell a story that has to save a life.
Without fear of execution. Wow, that's interesting. That's why it's called 1001 Nights. Wow, that's a lot of stories to tell.
the main setting of the stories would be Persia, also a little bit of India. Then, because Islam conquered Persia, these stories became known in the Arabian world too. And during the Crusades, the French picked these stories up from the Arabs, and they brought them to Europe. And this is why we have a 15th century text. In the 19th century, someone who is very well known, an American, wrote some fan fiction for 1001 Nights.
Fan fiction, you say?
His name is Edgar Allan Poe.
No. You're telling me Edgar Allan Poe wrote fan fiction based on 1001 Nights?
Right. This was in 1845. And he wanted to continue the story. So this is a sequel to the original story. He called it The 1002nd Tale of Sherazad. So
I'll compose myself, I'm sorry. Okay, carry on.
In his opinion, they wouldn't just sleep. She had been telling stories for 1001 Nights, so he was pretty sure that her husband wanted to hear the next story and that she would be able to finish that story within that night. So Edgar Allan Poe wrote a short story. And this time, Sherazad told her husband a story that is completely unbelievable, at least from his point of view. She tells him stuff that is so ridiculous that he just can't believe it. And remember, we have the pink robot horse that can fly with its green wings.
So it's a great reminder.
And I will only go into a few things that she told him because I'm hoping that you will read the whole thing.
Naturally, we'll pop a link in the description. Of course.
Right, and because it's a short story, that shouldn't take too long, so people can go through it. One thing, and the first thing she told him is that there is the largest city in the world, and it's an island city, but it wasn't built by humans. It was built by little worms.
Worms.
That was already a bit much for him. So he keeps interjecting. He keeps saying things like, "Humbug! This is not true. Why are you doing this to me?" And after every paragraph, he interjects with something like that. She tells him that there is a country where the bees and the birds are better mathematicians and physicists than humans. She tells him about a place where they make ice in boiling cauldrons. And the interesting thing is that all of this is true.
All of it's true.
Yes, all of it is true. And it is explained because half of this text, half of the fan fiction by Poe, consists of footnotes. He will give you the story and then he will explain the story. And this is why he has that many interjections, because you need to see where the paragraph ends. You need to see what he's referring to in the footnotes. So he cuts it into little portions and then he explains it in the footnotes. Tragically, Sherazad's husband gets more and more upset while he's listening to this. So he doesn't have the footnotes. He doesn't understand that this is all real. And therefore, he has her executed the next morning.
So she tells 1001 tales that are not true, and she lives. But the one time she says anything true, she dies. Moral of the story is lie, I suppose. It's not good.
I love this because, it's ironic. It's presenting things that were thought to be science fiction or that were thought to be just too ridiculous to exist. But Poe explains to his readers that all of it is true, and he explains in detail how it can be true. So he starts this tale with a sentence, truth is stranger than fiction. And that is, of
Title of the
course,
video.
I'll explain the little worms to you so you'll understand that. But I think we should, I think we should keep the footnotes for the reading of the story so people can guess what it could be. I'm just telling you that everything is true. And the first place that Sherazad mentions is the Great Barrier Reef. Because at that time, in 1845, the Great Barrier Reef was larger than any human city, and it was entirely built by little worms, by polyps. And it's the way she explains this. So if she just said, our first station is the Great Barrier Reef, he probably wouldn't have believed that either, because, that was about 2,000 years ago, maybe, when she told him this story, so nobody knew where the Great Barrier Reef was or what it was. She could have tried to explain it as a coral reef. That may have been something that he had some knowledge of. But she explains things without giving you the names or without giving you the crucial information that you would need to put this in order and to understand it properly. So only the descriptions are not enough, because the descriptions sound like something that is made up. But yes, you will get the whole set of footnotes, and we will have so much fun with this.
Oh, yes. It's certainly quite something. You're right. The descriptions of some of these are just, like if you really think about it, at least in our day and age, you can kind of decipher what some of it might be. But I could definitely see how, people back then would absolutely be like, what on earth are you talking about? All of this just sounds like pure nonsense and made up. It's very interesting.
Yes, and we will have some stuff upcoming that is similar, that sounds too weird to be true. So, for example, we're going to talk about Battleship Island. That's an island that belongs to Japan, and it has been confused with a giant battleship many times because that's what it looks like. So, American sailors have actually tried calling the island and communicating with, the crew, but there is no crew because it's an island.
Wow. That's quite cool. Not to be confused with the Trash Island.
No. There is also a bunny island that belongs to Japan.
A bunny island?
A tragic backstory, but we will get into that. So,
so not a happy place. Oh.
It's now, but it has a tragic backstory. So there is a reason why these bunnies are on this island.
Okay. Awesome. That's great. I'm looking forward to more of these too weird to be true tales. This is great.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to telling you all kinds of crazy stuff.
Fantastic. Well, so you've now heard that Edgar Allan Poe has a fan fiction from 1845. You said that's crazy. That is so incredible. Right. Just because obviously he read the Arabian Nights tale, 1001 Nights, super loved it, probably in a brooding kind of way as he is. And so much so that he made a sequel, 1,000 and what is it, 1,002nd tale?
1,002nd tale of Sherazad, right?
where she tells the king another story of all these true things, and he doesn't believe any of it, and so he kills her. It's insane. It's insane to think that Edgar Allan Poe has made a fan fiction, especially knowing what fan fiction is like these days. But let's not delve into that, shall we? That could be another episode when we talk about fan fiction. I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm talking about. We're not touching that. Well, exactly. Thank you so much, Ligeia, for sharing this with us, and we'll definitely find some more. Well, she has a lot of interesting things that we can go over, so we're gonna make more of these. You let us know if there's any specific topics you'd like to see or hear, but definitely let us know your comments down below about maybe other bizarre authors' fan fictions that you might know of, and don't give me fan fictions to read. All right, we're not at that point yet. Okay.
I could send you a reference to a story by Franz Kafka, and he has something in it that refers to the person who invented sadomasochism.
Yeah, I think we'd have to put put that like on a different channel. I don't know if that's going to be okay here. I'm curious though,
Probably not.
but that might be a little iffy with you too. But
I
if
can give
it's
you the title of the story and I can tell you what it is. So that would be fine because it wouldn't say too much.
okay,
So you can read up for yourself, and I'm sure you have this story, or it's very easy to obtain. Because
I
it's a
don't
story.
have this story. I don't personally own this story. Like, what do you? Don't be telling people these things, all right?
No, it's you won't have the book by the guy who invented masochism. But you'll probably have that Kafka story because it's a story with a bug.
Oh, okay. Start with a bug.
And it's very well hidden. So it's not softcore stuff in that story. It's just a picture, and you look at this picture and you understand. Oh, okay, that's what this picture is referring to.
Great.
All right. Thanks for having me, Nate.
Of course, Ligeia. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and thank you, Ligeia, again for sharing this insanely cool tale with us. And we'll be sure to see what else is on the horizon. See you next
Yes,
time.
next up will be monsters, if I'm correct.
That feels appropriate. Let's stop talking about Kafka and sadomasochism. See you next time, people.
See you next time. Bye.
Thank you so much to my YouTube members and Patreon members for all the love and support. It's thanks to people like you that we can keep growing.